All right, so I think we are live, and today, like I say, Canadian politics is like my favorite reality show. So today I'm being introduced to a new character. His name is Dougie Ford, Doug Ford. Apparently, he hit the U.S. with 25% electricity tax, and he threatens a complete shutoff if trade war escalates. Oh man, it's getting a little heated. And also, I watched yesterday. Mark Carney became the prime minister because he got selected as the liberal leader, and because Justin Trudeau stepped down. Now he's the leader apparently, but I heard he has to call elections soon, or not that he has to, but it's kind of the normal thing to do. I don't know what you call it. So yeah, let's watch.
With Premier Ford as we take another step to tackle the uncertainty created by the threat of U.S. tariffs. By the on-again, off-again erratic shifts and changing goalposts of President Trump and his administration. Through it all,
This guy though?
Premier Ford has been clear. Done this before, guys.
Did you just say president?
Premier Ford has Trump and his administration. Through it all, President
Ford, nice to be at your service, President Ford.
Premier Ford has been clear. Done this before, guys. That Ontario will stand up and fight. And that includes
he likes that. He's like, I'm the president of the United States, Doug Ford.
Message directly to the American people that we can be stronger together, that our economies are built on shared trade, investment, democratic values, and cooperation. That America directly benefits from Ontario's clean, reliable, and affordable electricity grid. For years, Ontario has exported power to the U.S., supporting jobs and businesses on both sides of the border. We've kept the lights on in American homes, in American factories and farms.
Dude, Doug has such a unique look so far. He kind of reminds me of like a frog or something, like a frog who turned into a human, but kind of kept the same facial features.
But when we as Canadians are under attack, we will use every tool in our toolbox to fight back for the good of Ontario and Canada. And today we send that message, that Ontario workers can never be taken for granted, that if the United States chooses to target us, they will feel the pain and pressure too, and that is leadership.
Dude, that's what I was saying. I kind of wish he would just pull the Band-Aid off and just turn off the power, just so we could see at worst case scenario what it would do to America if Doug just completely pulled the power.
And that's why over the past days we have worked to implement Ontario's plan to follow through on our Premier's commitment to stand up for our country and to fight back against this unjust attack on Canada's economy.
Unjustified attack.
And sovereignty. And with that, it is my honor now to turn it over to the Premier, Doug Ford.
President Ford, here you come, President Ford. President Ford. President Ford.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I just want to thank the Minister of Education, Minister of Energy.
Mr. Lecce.
I couldn't let that slide after calling me the President for that introduction. And thank you all for joining us here this morning. I want to begin by congratulating Mark Carney on winning last night's leadership race.
Isn't this guy conservative?
For the Liberal Party of Canada. It was an overwhelming win, actually.
Why is he celebrating?
In doing so, Mark Carney will be our next Prime Minister. As Premier, I look forward to a renewed federal leadership, as well as time when we all sit down and have a great discussion. And it's never been more important to build big things here in Ontario.
Build big things. What do you mean, sir?
Across our
things
country,
as in
including and especially the Ring of Fire.
And what does Mark Carney have to do with building big things?
To do so, the federal government needs to
All
get
Mark Carney does is he just moved his companies to America, right?
out of our way. They need to get behind these nation-building projects so we can build a more prosperous and secure future for Canada. I also want to thank Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his many years
I
of
feel like this guy is a conservative, but it's like here we call them rhinos, like Republicans in name only. This guy's a conservo, just conservative in name only.
service to Canada. You know, we didn't always agree, but when it mattered, Prime Minister Trudeau was always willing
President
to put
Trudeau.
party and ideology aside for the good of the country.
What do you mean? Didn't he take bank accounts away from the truckers? The Freedom Convoy truckers?
For weeks now, we've been faced with so
This
much
guy's a conservative. You would think he would stand with the truckers.
uncertainty coming from President Trump. Each day brings new tariff threats. Now, President Trump is threatening tariffs on steel and aluminum. He's pointing his finger at dairy and lumber, shifting timelines,
Yeah, because Canada has like 200% tariffs on America for those things. That's why he's doing reciprocal tariffs.
different excuses, chaos and confusion. It's hurting workers, it's hurting businesses, it's hurting investments, and it's hurting families on both sides of the border. It needs to end. That's why I've been crystal clear. Until these tariffs are off the table, until the threat of tariffs is gone for good, Ontario will not relent. We will not back down. Pausing some tariffs, making last-minute exemptions, it won't cut it. We need to end the chaos once and for all. We need to sit down.
How's he gonna do that? How is he gonna do that? Trump's already said he was gonna raise it again. What's he gonna do? Is he just completely gonna shut the power off? That would make it really spicy. You know, the only thing I've heard Doug Ford talk about is the power, right? So if he shuts off all the power, does he have like another step of something he can do? Is he gonna shut something else off? No more potash?
Work together and land
comes
a fair
after that?
deal. A deal that gives businesses
Because
the
it's like, if that's his leverage card, then he can't play it too soon. Because if he plays it soon, then he has nothing left, right?
confidence to invest. A deal that gives workers the security they need and deserve. Until then, Ontario will keep up the fight. We will apply maximum pressure to
Maximum
maximize
pressure.
our leverage. That's why today we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports. For the 1.5 million American homes and businesses that Ontario powers, homes and businesses in Minnesota, Michigan, and New States today, hardworking Americans. Let me be clear, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
Do it.
Believe me when I say I do not want to do this. I feel terrible for the American people because it's
No,
not
maybe he does want to do it. I feel like he enjoys being this tough guy. He's like, I'm standing up to Big Trump, Big Orange guy.
the American people
He can't
who
handle
started
me.
this trade war. It's one person who's responsible. That's President Trump. I'd rather be working together. I want to sell the U.S. more energy, more electricity, more
Of course, that's more money for you.
critical minerals. I want to make Canada and the United States the richest, most successful, safest, most secure two countries on the planet. But as Premier, my number one job is to protect the people of Ontario and in hand protect the people of Canada. I will do whatever it takes. I will fight like I've never fought before to protect Ontario. Friends, none of this makes sense. Costly tariffs against your closest friends and allies do not make sense. The U.S. markets have lost trillions in value. Companies are second-guessing investments into the American economy. American workers' jobs are at risk as we speak right now. Cost of hardworking American families will only go up.
I don't know. From my perspective, I've only heard like Canadians losing jobs and stuff so far. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
It doesn't.
I don't even live in the areas where this would affect. So I can't honestly say what it would do.
have to be this way. We are stronger when we work together. I hope we can get back to
Are any
working
of you from
together,
Canada?
creating jobs.
Have you guys felt any difference after the tariff threats and stuff? I feel like nothing's changed here much, really. Prices are still kind of the same.
Growing our economy.
Everybody's worried about the eggs, but the eggs were already a problem, so I don't think that's from Canada tariffs or anything.
Lowering costs for families in both countries. We don't get there by easing up. We will remain strong. We will be relentless. We will do whatever it takes to
Eggs?
protect Ontario. Thank you, and may God bless the people of Ontario.
That's
Thank
it?
We will
What the
now
hell?
take questions
Oh,
from the
questions,
media.
let's
Please come to the
go.
mic and state your name
That's
and
when it's
outlet. Just a
entertaining.
reminder,
Gets
it's one
heated, off
question
the
and one
cuff.
follow-up. First question.
Froggy
morning,
Doggy.
Premier. Mark McAllister from City News.
Hi, Mark.
Our understanding is that it's not
Mark.
always the case that Ontario is offering electricity at a particular rate where we're making money, and that sometimes, because of the extra energy that is being generated in this province, we're more or less giving it away.
So there's more energy than what you guys could use there. So yeah, interesting. You guys have a abundance of energy.
To some of those U.S. states. So how does a surcharge actually work in those cases?
Well, before I pass it to Minister Lecce,
Lecce.
we're over
Dulce de
producers when
leche.
it comes to energy. And in some cases, that's a good thing. We want to sell the U.S. more energy. We want to sell more states energy, but
So wouldn't the tariffs hurt Canada more because they're trying to sell more? Now it's more expensive now because there's the tariffs. So what if Trump slapped a 50% tariff? Wouldn't that totally just shatter the economy in Ontario at least?
even if Michigan or any of the three states, what happens, when I understand, and again, I'll pass it over to Minister Lecce, it may go to Michigan, and maybe that day they may not need it. They may need it too. If not, they'll resell it to, for example, Ohio, Pennsylvania. But it's going to affect many, many states, but I'll pass this over to Minister Lecce.
So even Minnesota sells it farther down the line, maybe?
So we estimate that based on the 12,000 megawatt hours of power we sell the U.S. versus the 374 megawatt hours we import, we are 30 times a net exporter. They need our power. We have the supply and demand.
So it's more like, to me, yeah, those areas need the power, but also that's kind of their sole business, right? That's their money maker. And if they're not buying more, if they're buying less energy from Ontario, wouldn't that mean that there's less jobs to go around in that sector at least? No? Maybe?
And systems in place by our systems operator will be okay in Ontario. This is about maximizing pressure on America and minimizing the impacts on Ontario. So when we sell them power on the spot market, as you mentioned, we're estimating $300,000 to $400,000 every single day of additional monies we're going to accrue in an account which the government is committing to putting back into the pockets of ratepayers to reduce bills for families and businesses. So if a state like Michigan flows our power
Let's see what
through
Grok
and
says.
sells it, as the Premier said, to Ohio, that means the impact of this surcharge is going to be reverberated.
The U.S. imports electricity from Ontario, Canada as part of deeply integrated North American energy grid. Ontario's clean energy mix, dominated by nuclear, about 55%, 21, whatever, makes it reliable and low emission supply, particularly for border states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. In 2023, Canada exported about 60 terawatt hours of electricity to the U.S., with Ontario contributing a significant portion via interconnections managed by the Independent Electric System Operator. Could the U.S. stop relying on Ontario's energy? Technically, yes, but it's not straightforward. The U.S. could redirect imports from Canadian provinces such as Quebec, but that's still Canada, or British Columbia, which also exports a large amount of hydroelectric power. Quebec, for instance, supplied over 30, primarily New England, New York. However, this would require expanding existing, so that even the other option would be from Canada. The U.S. could boost domestic production. Stateside options could scaling up natural gas. Already 40% of U.S. electricity in 2023. Renewables like wind and solar combined, or nuclear, but each has limits. Gas increase emissions, renewable. So it increases emissions, but Trump already said he doesn't care about that. And nuclear expansion, nuclear is like... but it would be harder. It would definitely be a more annoying option.
Right across America, not just in Ohio, not just in Michigan rather, or New York or Minnesota, but now in all the states, they then try to resell and upsell our power. So this is going to have, the Premier says we sell power all the way down to the U.S. All of the states, all along the I-95, they can feel the pain too. And it's regrettable we're here, but we're prepared to do this. And as the Premier mentioned, we have the capacity to scale this up above 25% if necessary.
Another quick off-topic question for Premier Ford.
Sure.
You had mentioned in an interview...
honestly, if you ask me, maybe it would have been better to start off at a higher amount, because if it starts off at 25%, then I would argue the U.S. has more time to diversify where they're getting their energy from, like ramp up the domestic energy production. So I think it might be more beneficial to do like 50 or 75% right off the bat. But then it might give away your cards, like I said earlier. If that's your big trump card, then it might give it away.
Review with our colleagues in the U.S. on the weekend that you're planning
Let's see if
on launching
Ontario
another
exports
marketing
anything
and
else
advertising
significant.
campaign in the U.S. in addition to what had already been done. Could you outline that, detail that for us, and how much more is that going to cost Ontario taxpayers?
Well, I called information ads. We need to inform the American people. If they just hear one side of the story and they aren't hearing the other side.
Yeah, so other product, Ontario is a powerhouse in automotive sector with exports daily. Exports heavily dominated by vehicles and parts, gold, machinery, equipment, electricity, metals, minerals, agriculture products, high-tech goods.
You know, their opinions might change, but we want to make sure we send clear message down to the American people. They're our greatest allies in this fight against these tariffs. So we'll get a cost, we'll be
So the U.S. is the greatest ally in the tariffs that are caused by the U.S.?
transparent, but it'll be the best money we've ever spent, because if we don't spend it, it would cost us tens of billions of dollars to our economy.
Morning, Premier Richard Southern, 680 News
Richard.
Radio. Good morning.
Hi, Rich.
Your threat to potentially cut off electricity altogether, would that be on April 1st if Trump went ahead
But
with
if he did that and completely cut electricity, that would for sure shatter the economy in Canada, no?
the additional tariffs? What would it take
Because
to get
who else would Ontario export that to if not America? The same way he says our economies are intertwined and it would it would affect us. If they stopped exporting completely to the U.S., what would happen then?
there, sir?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Richard. Let's just see how this rolls out. You know, he changes his mind literally every single day.
That's true.
So I just
feel like that's
wouldn't
a
want to give
tactic
you
or
an
something.
exact date.
Back
But
and
make no
forth, back
mistake
and
about
forth.
it, if he continues to attack our province, our country, taking jobs, families' paychecks, food off their table until they can't pay rent, I will do whatever it takes to maximize the pain against the American, and I hate saying the Americans because it's not them, against President Trump. You know, so many Americans I speak to and the elected officials and even the 3 governors I've talked to recently, you know, I start off with apologizing we're in this position, that we have to do this. And they fully understand.
It is what
they
it
do
is.
not
It'll be
agree
over
with President
soon.
Trump. Republicans do
We'll see what
not
happens.
agree, at least the ones I speak to, do not agree with President Trump, but they're too scared to go out there and say it publicly. It's a shame. We have to put an end to this.
On today's surcharge, it's all well and good in the winter when we are exporting energy, but do we not need to import energy in the summer? And if there's some retaliatory tariffs, if this stretches on, is there...
Yeah, I'm so confused now. Ontario also imports energy? He just said they have an excess of energy. Like, what? I guess in the summer? Yeah,
concern
I don't
about
know.
what this could cost Ontario come the summer months, sir?
Well, we'll make sure we have enough energy for ourselves. That's the #1 priority. And we're going to continue expanding our energy capabilities here in Ontario.
Hi, Premier Barbara with QP Briefing.
Hi, Barb.
So we did have an increase in the use of natural gas as a source of energy here in Ontario, and a big part of this natural gas do come from the States. So sort of following up on Richard's...
Okay, so natural gas is flowing up to Canada, Ontario. So could Trump could do the same, 25% surcharge?
question here.
As
So in doing what you're
retaliation?
announcing today in taxing
I don't
the
know.
energy exports to the States, do we have a plan in case they respond to tariffs in the natural gas that comes to Ontario?
Well, I think you're talking about Line 5 that starts in Alberta, comes through the U.S.
Line
and
5?
up through Michigan. Again, that's Canadian oil. I'm very confident we have enough natural gas, and we're going to build on that. Do you know who's to be blamed for not having gas?
Donald Trump.
All the elected officials for the last 20 years, they
Oh,
need to
yeah,
look in the
okay.
mirror
All right.
and ask, why didn't we build Energy East pipelines? Why didn't we go put another pipeline west? Why aren't we going north? This is where the federal government, no matter who gets elected, needs to look at national infrastructure projects that we'll never have to rely on anyone again in the world. I said that during the pandemic about the N95 masks and other items, and now we're self-sufficient. We can build anything here in Canada, and let's not be so
Isn't that the goal? Make everything in Canada?
reliant on
So then nothing would be imagine you don't rely on any other country for anything except for Canada. Dude, no one could mess with you. I think that's what Trump wants here.
the United States for our crude oil going down to the U.S.
So now off the topic a little bit. So yesterday we had Mark Carney announced as the next prime minister, and you said as
Carney
the premier
asada
you're looking
Carney.
forward to renewed leadership in the federal level. I'm wondering when
We
do you
produce
expect to see
more
help?
than we use. We sell the excess to the U.S., but we sell too much, so we can buy. you sell it, and then you have to buy it back. Trudeau's to blame. Run the pipelines up north. No one lives there. I'm so confused. So Ontario produces more energy than they need. Then they sell it to the U.S., and then when Ontario doesn't have enough, they buy it back from the U.S.
Election.
Well, I'm guessing, and I'm only guessing. I hear anywhere from 10 to 15 days they'll be going to the polls. I'm staying out of that election, but I do have some areas that we have to focus on. The Ring of Fire is a priority to keep us moving forward.
What's
We
the
can't
Ring
take
of
20
Fire?
years and putting every assessment, every consultation in the world for 20 years and not get one shovel in the ground. So we need to make
Makes
sure
sense.
that any federal government, number one, gets out of our way, but also has funding.
Kind of makes sense. I kind of
towards
like
that.
what he said there.
The other big area that never went through legislation are the EV
Oh, it's
deals.
So the Ring of Fire is the mineral-rich region in northern Ontario, vast crescent-shaped area in the James Bay lowland, roughly 500 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay, spanning about 5,000 square kilometers. It's one of Canada's most promising mineral development zones, known for its deposit chromite, nickel, copper, platinum, elements, gold, and zinc. All right. It was discovered
We
in
have
2000.
one big one outstanding. We have our money up there, but it's Honda. You know, it's over a $15 billion deal, and the head person from Honda is flying in to make sure that whoever's in charge, the federal government, gets this deal done. It's a tax credit. I got to explain to the people. We're asking the federal government to give a tax credit, not a big chunk of money. And it's a very simple philosophy. You don't give the tax credit, all of a sudden the 4,200 people from Honda get up and leave, multiply that by 5, there's only 20,000 jobs at risk for a tax credit. So I will be all over all the leaders about making sure they commit to the tax credits. Because look what we're up against. We're against President Trump, but will do everything he possibly can to attract these businesses down there. He'll do everything he
Trump is
can to
crazy.
get permits quicker for mining.
He's going into like unhinged mode this season.
They can be self-sufficient. We need to make sure we compete, and we need to have a wartime effort per se. And not military wartime, but economic wartime
makes
efforts.
sense.
We can't be dilly-dallying around.
This guy looks like a frog, but I kind of agree with some of the stuff he says. Like, he seems like he's not a big like federal government get involved type shit. He's more like, let us do our thing. Stop with all the restrictions. Because he was saying earlier, he's like, damn, we just want to put a shovel in the ground already.
10, 15,
Let us
20
just put a
years
shovel in the ground.
to get permits. And we need to give certainty to companies like Honda and any
That
other
is
company
how
that wants
our
to
power
invest in here,
generation works.
that they
All
will
right,
have a
makes
tax
sense.
credit.
Good morning, Premier. Fatima Syed with the Narwhal. On
The
Friday,
Narwhal.
BC Premier Eby said he'll be working closely with Ontario and the federal government to develop a coordinated approach to energy export tariffs.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that coordinated approach looks like and what Ontario's role is?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Premier Eby. I think they see income of, if I remember correctly, about $1 billion. But it's not just Premier Eby. It's Wab Canoe, Premier Canoe, which is an
Premier
absolute champion
Canoe?
in Manitoba.
There's somebody named Canoe in your government? That's pretty cool.
We also have to look at
Mr.
Premier
Canoe,
Legault.
nice to
I have
meet
a call
you.
into him before I walked in. And then anyone else. I think New Brunswick ships some energy, Newfoundland. There's a whole bunch of us that ship energy down to the U.S.
Yeah,
and we
I
have
just
to
read that
maximize
too.
it. And then we have to remember the 4.3 million barrels of oil that's coming from Alberta. As Premier Smith said on our comments, I think over the last couple of days, she has the Trump card. Well, a message to Premier Smith, one day I think you might have to use that Trump card. And
What is he saying? Is he saying she's too scared of Trump to pull the card?
Give approval for an export tax. Because you want to talk about a Trump card, that will instantly change the game. Instantly, when the Americans, and I know the Americans, all of a sudden their gas prices go up 90 to $1 a gallon, they will lose
That
their
would
minds.
suck for me.
So we need to at least put that in the window, but I don't direct any of the premiers, I don't direct any of the provinces, it's Team Canada, and that's going to be strictly up to Premier Smith to make that decision or not.
And going back to a previous colleague's question, you mentioned that energy will be a priority and you want to reduce dependency on U.S. energy. The plans Ontario has proposed.
I'm not going to say her name, but did you watch the Mark Carney thing yesterday? Dude, it was so boring. That one old Cretier guy, I think he forgot how long he was supposed to speak for. He started talking for like an hour. I had to go skip.
Proposed so far, that your government has proposed so far, are pretty time consuming. Building nuclear facilities is going to take a long time. How do you plan to increase those efforts in the wake of all of this?
Well, I'll hand it to Minister Lecce because he could probably condense it a lot quicker than I could, but we have a very, very strong plan, and I understand what you're saying, but it's not just nuclear, it's a multiple of different areas of energy, but I'll hand it over to Minister Lecce.
The first priority the Premier instructed me to do as Minister is to make sure we increase generation. So we launched the largest competitive energy procurement in Canadian history, 7,500 megawatts of power. And that is the first step we enacted. The second is we've expanded hydroelectric fleets in the north and likewise in Eastern Ontario, $2 billion investment to expand and really generate net new power. So we're using an all-the-above approach, leveraging every resource available to the government to ensure we have ample, affordable, clean power for the people of Ontario. And for the medium term, yes, we're looking at building net new nuclear, not just refurbishments that are being done on time and on budget at Darlington or at Pickering, part of our intention there, but we're looking at a net new generator in Port Hope, up to 10,000 megawatts of clean power. Together, this will secure energy future, make sure we are not just sufficient for Ontario and Canada.
Did you just say green energy? Did I just hear green energy from a conservative government guy?
That we can export more power as the
I always forget Canadian conservative is still like farther left than American conservative.
Premier's vision has, as he's communicated to people of Ontario, we
It's
actually
more
want
like
to sell more of
center
it to
right.
the U.S. and change the approach of how we sell it so we could really monetize, maximize the revenues back to Ontario so we could reinvest it in our people and our business.
We need to invest it in Ontario.
Hi, Premier. Jeff Gray, Globe and Mail. Just wanted to address
Frog
the
four.
question I think that somebody coming to this cold would ask, which would be, how can, in this titanic struggle involving billions and billions of dollars,
I'm just curious how all of
and
this
President
ends, you
Trump
know?
and everything else, how could 400 grand a day make any difference at all?
Oh, it makes a big difference. You should see the uproar
That's the
about
total,
the
400
alcohol.
grand a day?
And you know, you take they're called kitchen table issues, and this really will affect citizens or residents, I should say, in Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. And it's the same as taking our.
Okay, let's see. You would expect that in a freaky freelance own riding, she would do well. Same with the other candidates. Nope. Pick any riding at random and the results are all the same. Yeah, you know what? Like, when I was watching yesterday, I kind of understood why people would vote for Mark Carney. Because consider there's so many normies in Canada that like don't really pay attention to politics, and then they see this guy, he's like, oh, you know, he's got a good resume. Yeah, look, he looks good. He has a good suit on. One of the dudes looked like a janitor, you know, Chrystia Freeland's annoying. So I'm like, I kind of get it why he won. But then it's weird because he only had to win the Liberal Party nomination and now he's Prime Minister. which is like legal because Justin Trudeau stepped down. But it just seems really strange that he just has power now all of a sudden.
Alcohol off the shelves.
3%, 3%,
You know,
8%,
with the bourbon,
86%.
it really caught the attention of the governor and also the senator, Mitch McConnell. I want to thank him.
Mitch
He's the
McConnell, we
only
hate him.
Republican. One other Republican
He's not
from
one of the
Wisconsin
friends.
spoke out very, very harshly against the president's tariffs. So we win them over one at a time, and these kitchen table issues are absolutely massive. And they need Canada, and we need them. So let's sit down and negotiate a fair deal. That's all we're asking for, because the uncertainty is causing a lack of investment in both countries. The threat of closing down assembly lines on April the 2nd on both countries, it affects people. And we're so integrated when it comes to the supply chain, not just in the auto, but in every sector there is.
The more I read, the more I do realize there's actually so much stuff that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, we are actually quite intertwined.
So we're better off when we work together. And again, you know, we aren't the problem. China's the problem. When we see, for instance,
I heard
steel,
China
he's
tariffs
threatening
too,
steel and aluminum.
but on like
We
peas
know,
or oil or some shit.
steel from China goes into Mexico. Mexico might tweak it and then all of a sudden throw a made in Mexico sticker on it and get shipped up. That's unacceptable. We need to make sure every project we use is Canadian steel, and preferably Ontario steel, but I know there's other steel producers in Canada. Either way,
Canada.
the $30 billion of procurement that we have, that's not including the $222 billion of infrastructure that we are doing over the next 10 years. So there's a lot of products coming up from the U.S.
Dude, this guy speaking is so like exact same every time. It's that's what it sounds like.
That has to stop immediately. Immediately.
And a question maybe for both of you, just if you could clarify why just 7 days ago your energy minister said that you needed legislation to do this, but now you found a way to do it with the minister's directive and the regulation.
He said,
Thank you.
Well, we
Faithful,
talked
I'll
to
do whatever I
the
want.
OPS, the deputy minister, and Michelle DeManuel, and there's always a way to work around it, and they found it. So I want to thank them and for coming up with that.
People like
and
this
we
guy.
just need a regulation now. So good work to our ministries.
he seems so boring.
John McGrath, TVO. The nuclear reactor that we're building at Darlington, the small modular reactor, is an American design. It's going to be dependent on American technical expertise and American
shit.
fuel. Given the current context, are we discussing abandoning that design for a Canadian-made reactor?
You're talking about General Electric and Hitachi. We're working in conjunction with them, with OPG. And this is a technology every governor and every senator and congresspeople wants to come up and take a look at our technology. That's the difference. We open our arms up, we open our doors up and say, come and take a look at what we're doing. We're leading the G7 on the small modular reactors anywhere in the entire world. And that's just gonna benefit us. So we look forward to continuing.
I really can't add anything on that because a lot of the stuff this guy's talking about, it's such local politics stuff. The other, like Mark Carney, Justin Trudeau, most of them talking about big picture things. So I don't understand half the shit he's saying
moving
right now.
forward on the 4 small modular reactors, and we're going to
much
continue
choice.
building on that and sell it to the entire world.
That's how it is
I
in
know
politics.
Minister Lecce, who was over in Poland, a few other countries, really selling our energy. We're leaders when it comes to nuclear energy around the world. But I'm going to hand it over to Minister Lecce again, and you can tell him about your trip over in Poland and other areas that they're quite interested.
So keep in mind, our commitment with GE Hitachi is not just to build these in Ontario, but to ensure we leverage and maximize the Canadian and Ontario supply chain. And we'll be unveiling more in the days ahead about what that could look like. But expect a very high percentage of Ontario businesses to build out those SMRs. And we're proud to leverage that. And as the Premier mentioned, we're actually
I have no idea what an
selling this
SMR
tech
is.
not just into Europe, but even Tennessee Valley Authority, the largest public utility in America, is partnering with OPG, with Ontario. Like, we're leading in the G7, and the world is turning to Ontario to build.
So I get from this that Ontario is very good at nuclear energy, which I didn't know. I hope it's true.
Out these small
I don't
modular reactors so we could expand clean power
So
both in
local.
America and Europe and well beyond. So this is a
I'm
huge
American,
value
I'm not
add for
like- I
Canada.
don't
We're
know.
going to create thousands of jobs here at home, and we're really looking forward to seeing the first come in service in the G7 at Darlington around 2030, 31.
Similar question
All
about
right,
Bruce
all right.
Sightsee.
I'll never remember that,
going
but
to instruct Bruce
by
Power
the off
to,
chance that I remember he said that,
narrow its
and it
plans
happens
to
in the
ensure
future,
that they
I'll be
use
like,
a can-do
Doug
design,
Ford was the
or would
man.
they be allowed, for example, to pick a Westinghouse or an American reactor?
For the refurbishment of Bruce, of course, you know,
What
they
a
have can-do
crack
reactors, so over
Rob
90%
Ford
of the
let this
supply chain
sound
is already
crack.
leveraging Canadian. In fact, I believe it's close to 94%.
his voice sounds like it. Almost sounds like Bobby Kennedy from here.
Of every refurbishment uses Ontario and Canadian-made products,
Hoping he
supported by
would be
Canadian
more
and
like his
Ontario
brother Rob.
skilled
I keep
workers.
hearing that. Rob Ford. Is he older or something? Or is he something in the past? I always just assumed it was the same guy. Rob, Doug.
So we have an
his
incredible
middle
story
name.
to tell about making sure the supply chain is used, jobs benefit here in Ontario, and the money stays right here in the province of Ontario.
Hi there,
Very
Lorenda
good, very
Renikoff
good.
with CBC News. Is there a chance that these U.S. states find someone else to supply their electricity? Is that a possibility?
I just looked that up and it's kind of difficult. The only Grok's only alternatives to Ontario energy was to pump up energy from other parts of Canada. So I don't know, maybe domestic, but that's kind of a big pump from, you know.
I
don't know.
guess anything's a possibility, but they
Where,
wouldn't be
though?
buying it off us if they
Venezuela?
could buy it off a U.S. state. You know, we have to also build up our storage capacity, and we're working along with other provinces, be it Manitoba, which I always say Premier Canoe is an absolute champion, so is Premier
Let's
Legault,
go
and we're all
Canoe.
working as Team Canada.
We'll canoe to
So we're
you,
going to continue
canoe.
increasing our energy
The
because we're going to need
Manitoba
it.
canoe.
We're going to need it here in Ontario and to our neighbors. But wouldn't it be great if we get through this and we can sell more energy, more critical minerals to our U.S. friends and allies down there to make
That's the funny part. Like he's mad and putting these taxes or whatever, these fees. But his ultimate goal is to do even more business with America.
the AMCAN fortress even stronger. So that's what we're looking forward to working with our colleagues in the provinces and in the U.S. states. We have to get through this tariff threat.
You talked about the
It'll end
tariff
soon, I
threats that are
think.
to come, dairy,
I
lumber, aluminum.
think within this first year, this tariff war is gonna end.
I know this is primarily federal, but what are you looking at going forward that you can do on a provincial level?
Well, communicate. And if you ask the average
Communication is
American,
key.
do you know that you only
In a
produce
relationship,
16%
you know?
of the aluminum in the U.S. that you need? They wouldn't know that. Do they know that 50% of
Nope.
high-grade nickel that
I don't know
they use
shit.
for their military and aerospace and other manufacturing comes from
I just know
Ontario?
there's people make things here, or there's things available, and I've never thought about where they all come from because I never had to.
They wouldn't know that either. So we have to be out there just hammering the message over and over and over again until they can put maximum
Hey
pressure.
guys, can we get like 2 likes at least? Maybe that would be great. Thank you. Oh, I muted it.
To voice their opinion.
Good morning. So we've been told that it may be impossible for Ontario to cut off electricity supply to the U.S.
Impossible.
Could you explain to us
No
what it would
way.
take to get it done?
Again, we just have to reduce
That's like self-destruct mode. That's why.
the amount of energy we're outputting right now. And it wouldn't be nuclear, because if you turn down the nuclear reactor, it could take 6 months. But hydro, we could slow that down. And yes, it is possible. We've done our due diligence, and
See, like they say these things that we're gonna like, I'll cut your power, but he just said it would take 6 months. I'm pretty sure I heard that correctly. He said you would have to like cut down the nuclear so you could keep more energy. What the heck?
made sure, is it possible? And the answer
would
is
take a
yes.
while.
We can do it.
Premier, will you release a full budget sometime this spring with the full economic and fiscal updates and projections that we normally get in a budget?
Yes.
Yes, we'll have a full budget coming forward. I believe we're going to be going back in
controversial
the House. I think
budgets.
it's April 14th, I
Am I
believe.
right, Christian Freeland?
And we'll present that budget, and we'll move forward. It's going to be a very, very good budget.
Thank
It
you
will
for the
focus
like,
on the people of
whoever it
Ontario,
was.
taking care of them, protecting them. making sure that we have sufficient funds through new revenues that we see, as simple as the $400,000 a day, which is a big chunk of money that will be going back to ratepayers and business owners as
Yeah, that's interesting too. They have the fee now. What are they gonna spend the fee on? Are they gonna spend it on some government BS? Or are you guys in Canada gonna benefit somehow? Because if you guys benefit, I'm okay with that. Raise the fee.
as Minister Lecce said, but it's going to be focused on protecting Ontario and protecting Ontario jobs and communities and businesses. That's what this budget's going to be all about.
Hey, good morning, Premier Colin DeMello from Global News. Last week, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce said that up to 6% of businesses that they represent are thinking about leaving and perhaps relocating to the United States. We don't know if they're big or small. I'm wondering if you are aware of any business.
That's a little bit of pressure right there. It's been a really happy interview so far. Let's see, little pressure. Let's see what he says.
Big or small, that is looking at relocating to the United States as a result of this current tariff climate.
Well, I've heard the same comments, Colin, when 70% of someone's business or 80% someone's business is being tariffed, and they have a concern. But I feel if we can get these tariff deal off the table, or these tariff...
Yeah, so imagine, I don't know how long Trump's going to keep this on, but if he keeps it on for months, don't you guys think slowly companies will start moving here? I don't know. That's kind of what it seems like to me. Like, the more they get squeezed in Canada, some of them will just bite the bullet and say, fuck it, we have to move over there at least. In my opinion, that's what it seems like.
I should say, and get a deal, a USMCA deal, and sit down and negotiate it.
Oh, yeah, and USMCA is renegotiable in 2026, from what I remember.
The Americans need us as much as we need them. I sat down with a bunch of auto part manufacturers, and they're big companies that...
Drop some names, son.
...have plants in the U.S. and Canada. And their number one comment is, even if companies had to go to the U.S., they don't have the workforce to fill the jobs. Their number one complaint when I sat around the table with them, their existing plants in the U.S., you can't even compare them to their Canadian facilities or Ontario facilities in particular.
Well, actually, our manufacturing of cars, like in Detroit, went down because our company started closing since the globalist idea where, you know, bring it in from Mexico, make trade deals, bring it from Mexico. And that's what Trump's talking about. Like, we have the capacity in Detroit and other places. It's just we need the companies to come back so they can, you know, start putting people to work.
We, you know, production's a lot higher up here. We're outproduce them.
But yeah, I'm sure Canada's good at producing cars too. I'm just saying, like, it's not like America can't produce them. It's just the politics has been sending all the jobs away for a long time.
We have a better workforce, and they were saying a lot of times they don't even show up to work, and they can't get people. I remember one story saying they have, you know, 300 people they employ in a town of 3,000. So it really affects that community or that county. So they don't have the workforce to fill the jobs right now.
If there is a business that employs a large number of people in Ontario, as an example, that was thinking about moving to the United States, is the Ontario government
willing... The other stuff about Canada, believable, but that one, for sure
to give them any kind of incentive financially to ensure that they stay here, similar to what maybe, you know...
Yeah, but if, like, what financial incentive could you give the companies to stay, you know? Because it's not just the local provinces. I feel like the federal government in Canada also kind of ties your hand behind your back. And also, tell me if this is true. There's 15 people in here. Somebody has to be from Canada. I heard capital gains in Canada is like up to 66%. That's insane.
Honda or Stellantis or any others have received.
Bad internet lost
great
connection.
Question, Colin.
We'll
put every option on the table to protect the jobs here in Ontario, because there's reciprocal jobs that come from those jobs. You know, the auto sector is 6 to 1, 7 to 1. Other areas might be 4 or 5 to 1. And we'll do whatever it takes to protect the people of Ontario and their jobs. I said before, during the election, I won't spare any expense to make sure that we take care of the people of Ontario.
Okay, but if you spend more money, wouldn't that leave Canada in a worse off situation? Like, you guys are already spending too much money now.
The businesses here as we did during the pandemic.
Hi, Premier. Rob Ferguson, Toronto Star. I just wanted to go back at something that was asked earlier, which interests me for years. It's in the summer, especially if we get a hot, humid summer, which we haven't really had for the last 2 years. But were we to get one this year?
Do you guys even have hot summers? I thought all of Canada's supposed to be freezing.
And we're importing power from the States. I didn't hear a definitive answer on what's going to stop us from this electricity surcharge backfiring on us if states impose that. So can you or Minister Lecce address that, please?
Sure, I'm confident that we'll have enough electricity even on the hottest days, but
that's not even like a practical like step. You know, everything else he gave like details for it, but this one he's not even giving details. Like, we're gonna make sure we have enough electricity stored. It's like, but how? What's your practical step for that?
without getting into the weeds, I'll pass it over to Minister Lecce.
Lecce, what you got for us, Lecce?
So we sell 12,000 megawatts per hour of power into the U.S. market. We bring in 374 megawatt hours. We are a 31-time net exporter. So we are well positioned to impose.
Yeah, but if we're buying less and your storages are full, and then we do want to put a tariff on whatever you buy back, wouldn't that still affect you even though you're exporting 31 times more? Because even if you're exporting 31 times more, he already mentioned, like, it's not you can store unlimited amounts.
This. We have sufficient, in fact, we have very strong supply-demand capability in Ontario. Remember, we have the capacity, including with natural gas and other levers, to dial up if we ever need more power, peak power. We have the ability. We do this every day in the summer, the coldest days.
So he's saying if that's the case and we run out of power, they'll use other forms of power instead of importing it back from the U.S.
Of winter, whenever there are high demand on the grid. So we have the infrastructure. It's why the all the above approach is critical to maintaining reliability.
This guy should be president. What the heck?
So the IESO is fully confident in their capacity to keep the lights on for Ontarians, and we're going to keep selling and keep producing the power for Ontario first. And as I mentioned, we're not just hoping for the best. We're leveling up. The largest public competitive procurement, expansion of hydroelectric, expansion of refurbishment of our nuclear fleet, Pickering, Darlington, and the consideration of Bruce C, net new, and the largest generator. All this, short-term, long-term, positions us well to be a net energy powerhouse.
Capital gains up 250K is taxed 50%. Anything more than 250K, 666. I don't like that number. I really don't like that number.
And the vision, frankly, once we can get through this madness with President Trump, is to sign long-term deals, make large amounts of revenue for Ontarians, and put this critical...
Capital gains tax is literally like... That's absolutely theft. So you say you put money in a crypto, right? The government has nothing to do with that crypto. You put in like, say, 50,000, you go up to like 500,000. Why does the government need any of that money anyways? They didn't help you. They're not part of whatever crypto you invested in. I don't understand like what the idea of capital gains is, you know? Like everything else I get it, like income maybe, you know, you can make a point. The government helps out, makes a good economy, whatever. But capital gains, I don't know. I question that one.
Commodity to good work, good use for the people of Ontario. Right now, we think there's a lot more opportunity left on the table in the old system we inherited, which is why we're committed to changing it and improving it.
All right. When you just stay up there for a second. So when you mentioned that that high ratio,
all the characters in my new reality show called Canada
that we export way more than we import.
Yes.
So, but couldn't there be periods of time where we are still importing? Like that's not a constant ratio. It does change from time to time. So isn't there the prospect that we could get burned at certain times?
No, because we actually signed an agreement with Quebec on winter-summer energy exchanges, which allow us that we produce more power during one season, they produce less.
What if Quebec put their own energy limitations?
They have a connection and a commitment from Quebec. We sell them power, they sell us power on a need basis in winter, summers, based on our peaks.
And what if Trump raises the tariffs to 50%? Would Dougie Ford raise the fee to 50% too?
Backup generation capability, which
that?
few provinces have. I mean, look, some have argued to get rid of our backup generators like natural gas. If we did that, we wouldn't be in the basis.
I know that's from the green energy people. So dumb. They're like, let's just get rid of all the backups and the backups and the backups. So if anything happens to us, we'll just be completely screwed and we'll start over.
Hottest day this summer, pre-Trump, to fire up that insurance policy and keep the lights on for all of our businesses and families. We're well positioned to do this. We've thought ahead, and the Premier has enacted the largest storage investment in Canadian history, 3,000 megawatts of power to store power so that we could use it when we need it, including all those hot days of summer or cold winter days.
All right, thank you.
Hello, with a Swiss television question for Premier Ford. What about the long-term consequences? Are you worried that it might be the beginning of the end?
Honestly, it might kind of be a good thing if it stays at 25%. That would be an extra $400,000 the province is earning, right? They could just divvy that up however they want. Just let it go forever.
End of a long friendship between your two countries?
No, I don't think we're there yet. I talked to a tremendous amount of Americans. They totally disagree with what President Trump is doing. Staunch Republican Trump supporters totally disagreeing with President Trump on this policy. So I think we have a strong relationship.
I'm just here for the ride because I'm not like an economist, whatever. I don't know if tariffs work. But like I said, politics is pretty much like reality TV for me. So I'm just curious what's gonna happen.
It goes back over 200 years.
Let's just keep it going.
What is it? 900,000 Americans living here full time. 800,000 Canadians living down there. We visit millions and millions of visits back and forth across the border.
That's true. That's true. Even in California, I see Canadian driver's plates all the time. All the time. Is it because it's really cold up there, so you guys kind of come here for the warm weather? I could see how that works in California and Arizona. It's honestly the perfect place for that.
I believe this is going to continue on being a strong relationship because it's not the people, it's the president.
What could you say to persuade Donald Trump?
I would say, one of his measuring sticks are the markets. The markets have dropped trillions
of yes. But I'm kind of hoping house prices go down too a little bit.
Dollars.
Maybe I'll do that actually. I'll go on like Zillow and we'll see how house prices are doing.
He has to understand. He's a smart guy. He may like him or dislike him, but make no mistake, he understands the markets. And Secretary Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, understands the markets, and they also understand.
I kind of like this guy now. He's not completely attacking Trump, but he's saying what he has to say. That's my thing. Like, I'm a kind of a Trump guy, but not like fully. And when people come and like Chrystia Freeland like attacks him or Jagmeet just completely attacks him, I'm like, well, this is dumb. Obviously, you're emotional because you're on the other side, right? But then sometimes people will argue like certain points and say, yeah, he's doing this wrong, that wrong. But dude, come on. Trump is not a dummy. He's not a dummy. He's became president twice now. And the first time he was president, the economy was good. I can attest. Gas was so low.
When
even
the
in
big
California
three,
it was low.
Auto executives come in and say you're going to shut down assembly plants on both sides of the border within 5 to 7 days. That's the supply. And he also understands when the other sectors were so integrated, the supply chain, when they come back and say you just can't all of a sudden flick on a switch and create an auto plant overnight. It just doesn't work that way. So the more we explain the supply chain, and the more other people explain the supply chain to him, he has to understand. Even lumber, this lumber war's been going on, for the last 20 years. But the cost of homes are going to go up because they need our lumber.
Well, actually, there's a lot of lumber in America that has been put off the table because of the green policies. You know, you can't chop trees here because whatever. So I think as far as lumber, we'll do okay, and lumber prices will actually kind of go down. Because you guys even have a tariff on lumber for us. It's like 25+%. So I think that one is not going to be affected. The biggest one is the energy.
Our aluminum. Just imagine if all of a sudden we shut down the lumber, shut down the aluminum, the steel, the oil, you know.
And also Trump's mentioned this. For the steel, he's like, we'll take a little bit hit in the short term, but in the long term, he wants American steel to be making everything. Just kind of like how Doug Ford was saying, he wants Canada to be using Canadian steel. Trump kind of wants the same thing for America on that point.
The uranium from Saskatchewan, the potash, the nickel, it'd be a disaster down in the U.S. It'd be an absolute disaster. You know, he is trying to push us into a recession. That's how bad this is going to get. All because of one person. Everything was hunky-dory before. Everything seemed to be moving forward. Markets are up. Everything's going pretty good. Jobs are being created on both sides of the border. He gets in. Market slides, threats of assembly plants going down, manufacturing going down. People are going to lose their jobs. Inflation's happening all over the place. Because why? Because one person, President Trump? I'll tell you, the American people did not vote for this. And they have to think this out now. So put maximum pressure on your president. And I encourage the senators, governors, and congresspeople to do the exact same thing. Because there's one way this is going to go. If he goes full steam at it, it's going right downhill.
Yeah, but again, I'll say this. He's pleading to our voters, us, to be like, to convince Trump to stop it. For Trump, he's like, whatever. This can go on forever. So who's really in the driver's seat here?
Both countries.
This will be the last reporter.
Last question.
Good day, Premier Minister. Premier, last week you said that you were directing the deputy ministers to go through their ministries to see if there were other contracts, Starlink aside, with U.S. companies that could be canceled. So I'm wondering if any progress has been made on that front. Are any more contracts going to be canceled, and what is the value of those contracts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I've directed the Secretary of Cabinet, which will direct the deputy ministers, along with our ministers, to use a fine-tooth comb on any contracts that we have. Some are already underway that were signed last year, but as soon as they lapse, we need to start focusing on Ontario-made products, and if we don't make them...
Do you guys have Canadian alternative to Starlink? I've never heard of any other company besides Starlink, but I'm sure there is some. There has to be. Here,
then we look across the country, and we don't make them across the country. I get it, you know, like there's some things we just can't get.
That's practical. I like that. That's really practical. He's like, listen, gotta bite the bullet on some things, you know. Not everything is perfect.
But we do have 51 countries that we have tariff-free agreements with. Let's start diversifying our trade. We've been doing that, but we need to amp it up twice as much now.
Okay, thanks. And during the election campaign, you made a number of promises for the city of Ottawa. Voters there didn't exactly embrace those promises. Your party didn't win a seat there. So
I heard Carney is hiring like staff that Justin Trudeau fired.
I'm just wondering if your government will still go ahead with things like uploading the Ottawa LRT and the other promises you made for that city.
Yeah, you know, we did win a seat. We won one seat, lost a couple, but you know, we're going to sit down, I believe, and once we commit something to move forward, but isn't that a disappointment? My goodness, you show all the love, you build the second largest hospital in the country, you build you're uploading a few $1 billion, taking the burden off them.
Tisk.
We're uploading the highways and giving them additional money.
Updating?
Not sure what they were thinking, but I'm a man of my word, and we're going to move forward on it, and hopefully the people of Ottawa will appreciate the hard work that we're going to put in and that we've put in for years supporting Ottawa.
Thank you. This concludes
Yes.
today's press conference.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, these tow truck drivers, a message
Let's
to you.
see, let's
It has
see.
to come to
Is
an
it
end. You're
Pierre?
putting the community
Pierre
in danger,
Poilievre.
flying bullets around. We're going to
Let's
catch
see
you.
if
You're
Pierre uploaded anything today. Pierre is more interesting of a speaker, so we won't fall asleep. There we go. Look, 8 hours ago. Por ferch. Oh no, I don't speak. Sorry, I don't speak. Mark Carney. Here we go. Pierre Poilievre reacts to Mark Carney. Ooh, baby.
At Carl's Jr., when you buy one Big Carl or spicy chicken
Big
sandwich,
Carl.
you can get a second for just
Carl.
$1 more.
Sorry, not interested.
Bonjour tout le monde. En installant le conseiller économique, les libéraux essaient de
Why does it start with French?
conseiller le coût du logement des élites,
No
notre
French.
classe et les dernières années. Et faire les tarifs contre le Canada de pourtant si peu imposés aux libéraux pour assurer notre sous notre liberal MPs,
Here we go.
the same liberal advisors, the same liberal promises, who will produce the same liberal results. Doubling housing costs, doubling the debt, doubling lineups at food banks,
Yep.
enriching the global elites
Yeah, globalists.
at the expense of
Screw
the
those
working
globalists.
class, and making our economy more helpless and reliant on the Americans than ever before.
Yes.
Now, Mark Carney is trying to hide from his record over the last 5 years of advising Trudeau in favor of raising carbon taxes,
It's like everybody forgot
money
about that.
printing
Yesterday,
inflation, and
at the thing, they were
blocking
just cheering
resource
him on. I was like,
projects,
what the fuck?
all while he moved his company headquarters and jobs to the United States.
Let's go, America.
So it's ironic. Mr. Carney is trying to
USA.
distract from his many scandals and conflicts of interest, as well as his disastrous record as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, by talking about Trump. He's the guy that sold out to Trump.
Yeah.
6 days
Yeah.
after Donald Trump
He's like, I can't handle
threatened
this.
Canada with
Can't handle this.
tariffs
Take the
to
pressure
steal
off,
our
take the pressure
jobs,
off.
Mark Carney announced to
let's move everything
Brookfield
to USA.
shareholders that he would move his headquarters from Canada to New York. And when you asked him about it, he lied to your face.
We don't want Mark Carney's business here anyways.
We got it in writing, and we proved it.
He can take it
He
back.
sold out Canada. He put his profit ahead of our people. And he did exactly what Donald Trump wanted. Never before have we had a prime minister
Honestly,
so
he
conflicted
did.
and compromised and yet so
He
little
really did.
scrutinized. Just like when he supported carbon taxes in Canada while investing in American coal. He opposed Canadian pipelines while his company bought Middle East pipelines.
Yeah, what
He has
company does he own
millions of
anyways?
dollars of financial interests that run against Canada's national interests.
He owns an oil company or
He gets
something?
rich, making Canadians poor. You can be sure about one thing. Donald Trump's going to have a briefing on his desk of all of Mark Carney's American investments. And he is going to
I think Mark Carney's gonna get wrecked by Donald Trump too, like Twitter wise. I think he's gonna start talking crap.
leverage all of Carney's profit motive against the interest of the Canadian people. And we know Carney will sell out Canada for his personal profit. He's already done it. He's systematically done it his entire time as a corporate insider. Giving the Liberals a fourth term will not change any of that. Carney puts himself first. Conservatives will put Canada first. Putting Canada first means cutting bureaucracy
Yes.
and taxes.
That's one thing I haven't heard any other candidate say that Pierre has said, that he wants to cut the bureaucracy.
It means passing a big, beautiful, bring-it-home tax cut.
Everybody else's solution is to add more bureaucracy to fix the existing problems that their bureaucracy caused.
Lowering tax rates on work, investment, energy, and home building. It means axing the carbon tax for real,
Axe
for
the
good,
tax.
for everyone, forever. It means repealing the liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69 and instead granting rapid permission to our companies to build more pipelines, more natural gas exports, more data centers, mines, and other natural resources to bring home powerful paychecks
Neophi?
and production to our people.
What's a what's a neophi?
We need an east-west pipeline, and we need to say it in both French and English. Nous avons besoin d'une pipeline d'un océan de l'ouest à l'est. Dans les deux langues officielles, il faut le dire sans équivoque. Pour briser notre dépendance sur les Américains, we need to break our dependence on the Americans by building east-west pipelines. We need more interprovincial trade. We need to unleash our free enterprise system to reverse the helplessness that the Liberals have caused over the last 10 years of tax and keep it in the ground extremism. More than anything, we need to bring back the Canadian promise. In a country
She thought he
where
was done. How
we trade with each other,
disrespectful.
we produce our own resources.
The king
We
is
build
talking.
homes for our people. We protect our weak and vulnerable while
Carney is a
standing up
newbie. Axe the
to
tax,
the
don't
Americans
tax the
abroad.
axe. Axe the tax,
The
don't
Canadian
axe the
promise
tax.
is that anyone from anywhere
Don't
can
tax
achieve
the
anything.
axe. Axe the tax.
That hard work gets you
It's
a
difficult to
great
say.
life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag. Canada. Let's bring it home.
Mr. Polyev, what economic
Yes,
and
question
diplomatic
period.
experience
Let's
do
hear
you
it.
have to go up against Donald Trump?
Oh, quite a lot, actually. So I was the Minister of Jobs and Housing in the Harper government, during which time housing cost
Harper,
half
you
as
guys
much
love
as
that
it
guy.
does today. I helped Mr. Harper
Yeah,
cut the
he's-
GST, cut income
Pierre,
tax, cut
Pierre
business
said some funny stuff during his rally.
tax, and
He was throwing
balance the
zingers
budget.
out there.
I
didn't know he had it in
my
him.
time in Parliament, I've been scrutinizing and studying the books on the Public Accounts Committee, the Operations Committee, the Finance Committee. And if you want any proof that my economic ideas are the best,
They're
the Liberals
copying
are all
you.
trying to pretend that they're copying them
Let's
right before the
go.
election. All the big economic questions of the last 5 years, Mark Carney has been wrong and exactly wrong, and I have been right. I said 5 years ago the money printing would cause inflation. He said deflation was on the horizon. I turned out to be right. I said the carbon tax would drive up food prices.
Carbon tax.
And it did. Drove them up 37% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. I was the first parliamentarian to predict that we would have the inflation crisis, while Carney, Freeland,
He's not wrong. I've watched his old videos, and he's been talking about it since he was wearing glasses and looked funny back in the day.
Trudeau and others
Now
were
he's
saying
polished. He looks
that we
good.
would not. I was
Sleek.
the first one to be, along with my conservative colleagues, fighting for pipelines. Pipelines now everyone claims that they support after opposing them for the
Not on Trump's level, but there's that hilarious video. Yeah, the apple. I've seen it. That's the video I've seen the most about Pierre. That's actually the video that introduced me to Pierre.
last 10 years. So if Mr. Carney is so smart,
But Trump is like old now, so his trolling is not as good. Back in 2016, that guy was a menace. He's like, if an ex-troll got elected, that's the way Trump handled stuff.
on economics,
It was glorious
how
to
is
watch,
it that
though.
he was so wrong
People
for
hated
so
it, but they just don't have a good sense of humor. It was so funny.
long on all of the economic issues? One thing I don't have experience with is taking jobs out of Canada, moving them to the United States, selling out our resource workers to support Middle Eastern resource workers. That's not the kind of experience that I have, but that's not the kind of experience that we want.
Despite what you're saying, recent polls are showing that more Canadians trust Mark Carney to deal with Donald Trump rather
You know what it is? It's because there's so many normies, and they're like they weren't even thinking about politics until this tariff stuff happened. So now they wake up and they're like, oh look, this polished dude over here, Mark Carney. You know, he has 4 passports, didn't live here for 11 years, but he looks okay. We'll vote for him. So I think it pumped a little bit of excitement into the base, since Justin's drama ass has been in there for a long time now. But give it a little bit of time. Once the election season starts coming around, once they announce it, I have a feeling Pierre's gonna start pumping in the polls again. And once people start seeing Carney is not for them, starts making some stupid decisions, they'll be like, all right, yeah, we gotta go with Pierre. We can't do this anymore.
than you. Why do you think your message is not cutting through and getting through to Canadians?
Canadians have a choice in the next election. Do they want to give the Liberals a 4th term in power?
That's a long time.
After they drove up housing costs, food
Yeah,
prices,
that's a long
and
time.
taxes, blocked resource projects.
Even if they don't like Pierre, don't you think it's time for a change? Like, it's not like society is getting better for the citizens, right? Why not just give it a shot? 4 years. If you don't like it, it'll just burn down. You'll go back to the liberals.
And made us more reliant on Trump's America? Or do they want Canada First conservatives?
Trump is a businessman and Carney's a businessman, but the difference is Carney isn't that good of a businessman, and he's like a little wimp. So as soon as he gets in front of Trump, Trump's gonna yell at him, and Carney's gonna get scared, like, You know. But Pierre, look at Pierre, dude. This guy's like strong. If Trump gets in his face and yells at him, Pierre will just yell back at him, right? And like, cause he's smart too. But I don't think Mark Carney has the Justin didn't have the Christian Freeland.
Who will axe taxes, build homes, unleash production of our resources, and bring home paychecks, production, and sovereignty to our country.
Mr. Poilievre, what instructions have you given your caucus members and your candidates about wearing MAGA merchandise or using MAGA slogans?
What?
Well, my instruction is that we should put Canada first. We
Did
want
you
to put
just
our
ask
country
about
first,
MAGA?
stand up for our country against both American aggression, but also
Yeah, I think
against
he got
the
caught off guard, too.
destructive
He's like,
liberal
what?
policies that have made
The
us
fuck did you
helpless
say, lady?
and reliant on the U.S. I have also made it clear to my members of Parliament that we should favor bringing jobs back to Canada, not move them to the United States of America as Mark Carney did when he had the chance.
gonna
We're
throw that
going
in
to have
there
a
every
carbon tax
time.
election, considering Mark Carney says he's going to scrap the consumer one?
We are going to have a carbon tax election because Mark Carney has proposed to add another industrial carbon tax.
It's
on
just
top
another
of the
tax on you
existing
guys.
one.
It's the same thing.
In days,
It
Donald
gets
Trump
passed on
could
one way or
impose
another.
tariffs on Canadian steel. At the same time as Mark Carney says that he wants a new carbon tax on Canadian steel. By the way,
Why would you?
it's
Why
not-
would you tax your own steel? Isn't that just like reverse of what you would want to do? Especially now with the tariffs. Why don't you just take the tax off the steel and then they'll start producing more? Maybe they won't leave. I don't know. Just an idea, right?
me that says his tax would
Tax
apply
is
to
not good
steel.
for business.
It's him. In an interview he gave to CTV in Atlanta, Canada a month ago, he claimed that taxing steel was a great idea because people, he says, don't use steel anymore. Well, this building would come crashing down without
This is like a common thing he says. He's like, where do you think we get what do you build cars with? What do you think you build machines and factories with?
steel. Automobiles would be impossible to make without steel. Our civilization is, the bones of our civilization is steel. And Mark Carney wants to bring in a big industrial carbon tax on our steel workers at exactly the same time as Trump plans to tariff our steel.
Yeah,
the
it's like-
combination
it's opposite.
of Trump's tariffs and
It's
carbon
opposite
tax,
of what you should
Carney's
do.
tax, would destroy our steel sector and threaten our national security.
Cette taxe carbone dont vous parlez, la portion
Parlez-vous
industrielle
français?
qui existe déjà, allez-vous la garder? C'est pas clair.
C'est
No
c'est pas
French,
clair
please.
qu'ils
There's no
taxent
translation.
cher. Il financer un système de crédit vont
No.
Him the post of finance minister?
Mr. Harper confirmed to me that Mark Carney has taken credit for things he has not done, and that if I could, he said that Mr. Carney he was astonished really at how Mark Carney took credit for things he never did. And at the same time, we know this is a pattern for Mr. Carney. He claimed that he helped Paul Martin balance the budget in 1998.
It's like Joe Biden.
Well, Mark Carney wasn't even in the country or working for the government at that time.
Was
He
he?
didn't join the government as a bureaucrat until 2004. So this is a consistent pattern of Mark Carney
Consistent.
lying to the Canadian people. You know what I find interesting about Mark Carney? He doesn't want to take responsibility for the things he actually did, like advising Trudeau for the last 5 years. But he wants to take credit for things he did not do, like managing Canada's financial policies under the Harper government.
I just want to clarify because Mr. Harper is not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. She was offended, you can tell. Alright guys, that's it for now. We've been going for over an hour. I might be back later, but American politics, because I haven't watched anything like that for a while. Thanks for stopping by.